Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Natalia Moczulska and this is the news. In response to a missile attack by Hamas militants, Israel is continuing its anti-terror operation. The Israeli army has called on all civilians of Gaza City, more than 1 million people, to move south within 24 hours for a planned ground invasion. The United Nations has deemed the exodus impossible to carry out without dramatic humanitarian consequences. The death toll in the latest stage of the conflict between Israel and Hamas is rising dramatically. More than 2,800 people have already been killed on both sides. The Palestinian Authority says more than 1,570 Palestinians have been killed in the fighting and more than 7,200 wounded. According to the Israeli Health Ministry, the death toll on the Israeli side has risen to 1,300, with some 3,300 wounded. The years-long conflict escalated dramatically on Saturday after Hamas, which controls the Gaza Strip, fired thousands of rockets into Israel in a massive surprise attack.
This is why we assumed this very hard assumption that she was recaptured, taken to Gaza, probably with her sister-in-law and mother-in-law that were with her at the same house. And we are talking about our family. 3 women captured, are in captivity, held hostage by the terrorist regime in Gaza.
In contrast, a concentration of tanks, combat vehicles, artillery, and other vehicles began this morning in southern Israel ahead of an expected ground invasion of Gaza, where the hostages are being held. The Israeli army has called on all Gaza City civilians, more than 1 million people, to move south within 24 hours. Israeli warplanes continue to shell Gaza in retaliation for weekend attacks by Hamas militants. The ground invasion will be carried out against the narrow and densely populated Gaza Strip, home to 2,300,000 people. The UN Humanitarian Office reports that more than 420,000 people have been forced to flee their homes. Our enemies are evil. Our enemies are cowards. Killing children is a lack of humanity. I can't keep up with the number of people killed. Why are they doing this? I thank God that our martyrs are in heaven, but we are sad. Everyone is sad for the people and loved ones they lost. Continued airstrikes and the cutting off of Gaza's water, electricity, and fuel supplies are pushing the local healthcare system to the brink of collapse, causing a major humanitarian crisis in the enclave. At the same time, Israel has stated that unless Hamas releases the hostages, water and electricity supplies to Gaza will not be resumed. Gaza's hospitals simply cannot accommodate such a huge number of patients injured by the airstrikes. Gaza's power plant ran out of fuel reserves yesterday, so Gaza's medical facilities can only rely on their own generators. In addition, Gaza's medical resources, including medicine and equipment, are already running out. It is expected that many hospitals will be forced to stop using respirators and halt treatments, which will be a fatal blow to the injured who are hospitalized. Tension is also rising on the Israeli-Lebanese border over the deployment of Israeli tanks and vehicles on standby. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken yesterday spoke in Tel Aviv with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, whom he assured of American support in the face of an attack by Hamas terrorists. Blinken also met in Jordan with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, as well as Jordan's King Abdullah. Blinken, in a bid to stop the escalation of the conflict, also plans to visit key allies Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and the United Arab Emirates. Striking Hollywood actors hit the picket lines in full force on Thursday, only a day after negotiations between Hollywood studios and the SAG-AFTRA Actors Union broke down. The negotiations were suspended as the two sides clashed over streaming revenue, the use of artificial intelligence, and other issues at the core of a 3-month work stoppage. Outside of the Netflix building on Los Angeles' Sunset Boulevard, hundreds of striking actors turned out to walk the picket line, dance and listen to galvanizing speeches from the SAG-AFTRA negotiating committee. SAG-AFTRA stands for the Screen Actors Guild and the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. SAG-AFTRA's chief negotiator, Duncan Crabtree Ireland, said actors would not participate in Hollywood's upcoming awards season without a contract.
So we will not give up. We will not surrender. We will not be deterred from fighting for what actors, SAG-AFTRA members deserve, and we will be out here delivering that message, not just to this streamer, but at all of the studios here, New York, around the country, and our negotiating committee and the staff who stand by them. We will stand strong with our members in solidarity, and we will do it because one day longer Well, I mean, honestly, award season is important, but it's certainly not our top priority. Our top priority is making sure we have a fair deal for our members. So, if this negotiation doesn't get resolved, if this strike doesn't get resolved before award season, I can assure you that SAG-AFTRA members will not be participating. And nobody wants that to happen, but there has to be a fair deal. This is an existential moment. We are not going to sell out our members. They have to be, at the table making a fair and respectful deal that protects people in AI, deals with their minimums, and has a reasonable, fair compensation for streaming. It's not that hard.
The breakdown in talks interrupted attempts to end labor tensions that have put most U.S.-based film and television production on hold, cost the California economy billions, and left thousands of crew members without work. SAG-AFTRA has been on strike since July. The union resumed negotiations with studios last week after the Writers Guild of America ended its work stoppage.
I'm feeling more determined than ever. Look, we're storytellers, so this is the part of the movie where the hero gets knocked down and you think they're out. And this is the part where you double down and you come back and win the day. We all know that and we all believe that in our hearts. So, look, we're actors. We get rejected multiple times a day. We get rejected for stuff we didn't even know we were up for. So our ability to withstand rejection, to withstand adversity, and to stay resilient is more than I would say virtually anybody else in this town.
Not great. I mean, although I've been hearing that they tried this exact same thing with WGA, basically going back to the table and saying, no, you guys should accept the first deal that we gave you and be grateful for it before they acquiesce to the fact that none of us are going anywhere. So I'm still really hopeful. It was such a good turnout today, and I think it's really good to show the studios that, yeah, we're not going away and we're not going to quit.
We just want a fair deal. We want to be able to make a living, to feed my 2 daughters, and to rent a home in California, in Los Angeles, and I can't do that without these extra revenue streams, you know what I mean? These are streams that are, we're not trying to get new stuff, we're trying to get back to normal. We used to have revenue streams every time they played the stuff that we were in. Now we don't. We just want that back. You know what I mean? We just want protection so that they can't use our face in perpetuity and continue to make money off my face in perpetuity without ever having to pay me again. They want to keep making money off the work we do and not give us the money for the work we do. And that's just not fair. We want to get back to work.
I think we will win eventually. There are too many of us, we're too strong, and we're too important. But I am disappointed. I think we were all really hopeful after the writers got their deal. Everyone was very excited. I think our negotiating committee came to the table with open arms, willing to talk, and they said no. And in fact, they said worse than no. They said, we're just gonna go back and give you what we originally offered. And it's not fair and it's not right.
The Writers Guild of America deal had raised hopes for a quick resolution with actors until the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, also known as AMPTP, late on Wednesday said talks were suspended once it reviewed the most recent union proposal. After meaningful conversations, it is clear that the gap between the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers and SAG-AFTRA is too great, and conversations are no longer moving us in a productive direction, said the AMPTP, which represents Netflix, Walt Disney, and other media companies. SAG-AFTRA, in a letter to members issued early Thursday, said it had negotiated in good faith with studios, despite the fact that last week they presented an offer that was shockingly worth less than they proposed before the strike began. It is with profound disappointment that we report the industry CEOs have walked away from the bargaining table after refusing to counter our latest offer, union negotiators said. From Mickey Mouse sketches to Cinderella's glass slipper, a new exhibition opened in London on Friday, celebrating 100 years of the magical world of Disney. The Walt Disney Archives has selected an array of art, props, and costumes featured in classic animations such as Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and The Jungle Book, as well as more recent live-action productions like Cruella and Beauty and the Beast. More than 250 items are on display at Disney 100, the exhibition, which begins with an introduction to animator and producer Walt Disney and his character Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, set to be a prototype for Mickey Mouse.
We at the Walt Disney Archives are the keepers and the caretakers of Disney history, and so we were given the task of creating this special exhibit for the 100th. And I think what's interesting about this exhibit, there's a lot to look at. There's a lot of really fun interactivity and projections and media and things like that. But there are also some very, very special artifacts and things from our collection. and a lot of deep storytelling in this exhibit. You can come in and just see the fun things that are in cases and enjoy the photo opportunities, but there's also interactives there. You can take a really deep dive into Disney history.
Throughout the exhibition's 10 galleries, visitors can look at props, including the carousel horse used by Dick Van Dyke in Mary Poppins, to production models of characters Lumiere and Cogsworth from the live-action remake of Beauty and the Beast. Also featured are sketches and interactive stations, and items from Marvel, Pixar, and the Star Wars films, now part of the Disney conglomerate.
So there's 10 galleries in this exhibition. Begins with a introductory, this is who Walt Disney was and this is his early years, coming all the way up to what's going on and what we're going to see in the future of Disney in the next 100 years. And so in between, between those 2 points, there's 9 galleries that tell you about Walt's philosophies, how he made films, and how we followed in his footsteps ever since.
Animator and director Eric Goldberg has worked on various Disney characters, with the first being the genie in 1992 animation Aladdin.
Most people's first experience of being in a movie theater is usually a Disney movie, and that connects us all in a huge, huge way. And also, animation has a shelf life. Bambi doesn't wear, fashions from the 1970s, so, it doesn't date that way, and these characters can remain true and universal for decades.
Brett Ewan, who has voiced the character of Mickey Mouse since 2009, was also present at the exhibition.
But really, every day I wake up, and if I have a recording session, I go, ah! And if I can do that, then I know that Mickey's there. Because he lies in kind of a middle falsetto, if I, let's see, well, here's Mickey, hiya, pal. If I go too low, hiya, pal, that's not quite Mickey. If you go too high, hiya, pal, not too quite Mickey, so you have to get right in that middle range. I always try to reference what Walt did and how Walt sounded, so oftentimes I'll listen back to some old stuff that he did and try to emulate that. One of my favorite lines is from a cartoon called The Pointer, where Mickey's out hunting and he encounters this bear behind him, and you see Mickey kind of acknowledge his own celebrity, which I think was interesting in the moment. But he turns to this bear and he says, I'm Mickey, I'm Mickey Mouse. I hope you've heard of me, I hope. And I just think it's the cutest thing. So I kind of reference old stuff all the time and practice that way and just kind of keep it sounding right, I guess.
The exhibition at London's Excel, of which another version will open in Chicago next month, runs as the Walt Disney Company marks 100 years since its founding, considered to be when Walt and his brother Roy Disney signed a contract with New York cartoon distributor Margaret Winkler on October 16, 1923. The Disney exhibition in London will be held until the end of January 2024. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Please stay tuned for Poland Daily Weather, Poland Daily Business, and some of our other programs. But for me, it's have a wonderful weekend.